Who's up for human sacrifice? Here's a look at the Hasbro Indiana Jones Adventure series that build an artifact Temple of Doom, Hypnotized Indiana Jones. Forced to drink the blood of Kali, Indiana Jones falls under the black sleep of Kali Ma, a trance that turns the victim into a mindless cult follower. This collectible 6-inch scale adventure series figure is detailed to look like Indiana Jones' hypnotized character from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, featuring premium detail and multiple points of articulation. Just before Indy goes and backwashes, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall Hypnotized Indy stands. By the way, if anybody was thirsty and would like to help themselves to the drink table, I've got drinks over there. All the goblets, by the way, were made in producer Tony's image, so they're going to hold quite a lot of beverage. In the meantime, though, Hypnotized Indy stands about 6 inches. In fact, he actually is exactly 6 inches in height, or the figure is going to be 15 centimeters tall. And a trio of Indies coming your way. First, here was the figure that we looked at last. This was the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones. And I guess if you wanted to go in proper chronological order, it really should have been the first Indiana Jones, in fact, that we looked at. But then we also, in the past, looked at the Raiders of the Lost Indiana Jones. And while, unfortunately, the ones booked on either side, you can't then swap out the heads. We've already talked about that in the earlier review of the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones. In case you are interested, though, you can, in fact, change the heads on these Indiana Jones, as I certainly would hope so. There are, after all, are the same wave and all. Speaking of chronological order, though, I realize now I've done this completely out of order, as the Build-A-Figure components that come included with Hypnotized Indiana Jones aren't going to be doing squat in the way of progressing our skull. This is as far we've gone as actually the building of the skull from the temple, as we've only got just the bottom jaw. What we do actually get with Indiana Jones is 3 glowing stones. Those are, of course, the ones that are going to be fitting in the sockets of both the eyes and the nasal cavity. But unfortunately, as you probably have already guessed by the fact that this is only now the second figure we've looked at from this wave, we can't do that. That top skull, by the way, came included with the Dial of Destiny Helena Shaw. Yeah. Kind of wanted to keep them near the last, but I probably will end up having to look at her coming up shortly in order to make at least some progress, because again, like, these stones are only going to be more serving a purpose for the skull. They are of different sizes. This one being the largest, I would imagine, goes in the nasal cavity, and then the ones that are smaller probably going to be sitting inside the eyeballs. So we're just going to move those to the side for right now, at least. While I suppose we are on the topic of stones, the figure actually comes this time around included. Let's just pick these up with actually. He comes included with the Sankara stones. Now, these aren't the ones that are actually glowing. I suppose you probably could, in fact, store these inside the skull's head. But considering that everything is already brown, I don't know. I would much rather go with the glowing Sankara stones instead. But you get 3 of these, and you also get technically a pouch. Now, the pouch does open. You can see that there's pegs on both sides that actually fit then in the provided holes in the front. But if you look at the actual size of the bag, there's no way that that's going to be able to store all 3 Sankara stones. If you're lucky, you might be able to get 1 in there. And even then, just to fit the 1 in there, it's tight quarters. You might be able to close the... Can't even really close the bag even. I mean, it holds 1. I don't think you'd be able to really hold more than 1. Likelihood, I'll probably just take the other Sankara stones if I don't plan to display them on the shelf. Oh, by the way, let me just show you the detail on the side of those. They have, as you can see, these tiny little notches on the bottom of the stones. Now, again, like we have this one here. Actually, this one doesn't have the little notches, nor does this one here either. But they have some additional brown that they've sort of marbled onto the plastic itself. They look good. But again, I don't really know if I have much of a purpose, at least for displaying them, unless I get myself a little tabletop. Maybe I could check online and see if I can find like a little stone table. A stone table would be ideal. Something I could at least have these then displayed. I could probably then display the other thing that comes included with this Indiana Jones, a gruesome goblet of Kali Ma. You can see, like, the way they've sculpted this is fantastic. Not something I would imagine geared towards really kids, but it is a goblet. As you can see, it's got a little gold making up the majority of the bottom. And then the part that you pour from is actually sticking out the front of the skull's face. Isn't that nice? Isn't that lovely? I love the fact that they would have included this. Probably a little scary, though, I think, when it comes to kids. And then, of course, the last thing that comes included with Hypnotized Indy is the fact that the figure comes included with the spear, the pike pole. The pole itself does have some nice color of a darker gunmetal gray on the end of it, wrapped up in the middle of it before we actually get to the handle, painted off some nice additional black, and of course then you've got the main stone grain that they've added to the handle. I really like actually that the way they've sculpted the post, it doesn't have just like a perfect shape like a pencil. It actually has irregularities to it. It actually looks real, like it looks like a real stick. The weird thing about, though, the Indiana Jones is that the figure actually has, if you look at his hand, a trigger-firing hand, and yet he doesn't come included with his revolver. I think I would much rather probably just pop these hands out and replace them with another Indiana Jones. I mean, it serves at least the purpose of it holding the spear. You just take the spear, of course, and then you fit it into his hands. And if you want to display the figure then with that, you can, obviously, with the hands being bent in both elbows, you can also have Indiana Jones holding the spear from both the sides, and yeah, you can do some rather interesting pose, I suppose, if you wanted to with it. But again, I'm just a little confused as to why they opted to give this guy a trigger-firing hand if he doesn't come with a pistol at all. One thing also he comes included with as well, like the pouch, the little satchel that he came included with the Temple of Doom release, is that he also comes with the rope. Like the rope you could take off if you want to. You just bring his arms up. Why am I making it worse than what it is? You can see, like, the rope is nice. Like, they've actually taken the time to sculpt a little tiny knot at the bottom of it, and it does look like threading. Just going to fit for right now, at least this over in Indiana Jones's body. Now, I did say in the earlier end of this review that the head sculpts are swappable. Just before, of course, we did do the swapping out anything. I did want to show you guys the defaulted head. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it blows out of the water the original Raiders head sculpt that we got from the earlier wave. This looks, I feel, at least a lot more like Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones. If you really wanted to, I suppose you probably could buy yourself a second Hypnotized Indy and maybe find a way to try to remove the marking that he has on the top of his head if you wanted just an unhatted. Unhatted, is that a word? We'll make it a word. An unhatted version of Indiana Jones. Let's just say, for example, if you want to display it with the figure. Well, let's just display it with this figure. Let's go ahead for right now. I'm going to pop the head off the ball joint. Every single time I pop the heads off these ball joints, I always feel like I'm going to be breaking the peg. I'm sure they're probably never really been planned to be removed, but I did obviously, for the purpose of these reviews, want to show you guys what they look like. So let's just go ahead and pop this head off. And again, we just pop it off the ball joint. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time now to do this. I decided to actually just go back and heat this back up. I didn't want to heat it too much because I was worried about having the marking removed from the top of Indy's head. So what I did rather instead was I just took a few passes with the hairdryer, enough to soften up the plastic. And the whole real reason why I was even doing this anyways, what was their logic to this madness? The madness was, so I just wanted to show you guys what the head sculpt looked like on the other ball joint. We're just going to pop it onto the ball joint. There we go. And I did want to show you guys, like, there is the option available if you wanted to display Indiana Jones. If you overlook, obviously, the fact that he does have the red mark on the top of his forehead, yeah, you could get yourself an unhatted version of Indiana Jones. And it does actually quite look good. And I guess if you wanted to, you could give yourself, I don't know, a hatted version of shirtless Indiana Jones, if that's the kind of way you'd like to have it on your collection shelf. I'm not going to judge you. But let's go ahead for right now, at least, because, of course, we want to put everything back to the way we found it. Let's pop the head back onto Indiana Jones, the other Indiana Jones. There we go. It's a lot easier, in fact, to put the heads back on than it is to remove the heads. Let's just pop that back into place. Now, of course, when it comes to changing this head sculpt, as we've already discussed already in the earlier Indiana Jones Temple of Doom figure, is that the ball joints on these only seem to work with this wave. Earlier wave Indy seemed to have a smaller ball joint for whatever reason, or was the other way around. It was the other way around. So for some reason, you can't actually take this head sculpt and use it with the Raiders Indiana Jones body instead. Speaking, though, of bodies, if we can overlook the rope that he has here we have shirtless Indiana Jones. He is a slightly different color right here for one reason or another. I'm not sure really what that reason is. Right here, you can see there's a little more smudging of brown. It doesn't seem to serve at least a purpose that I can find other than the fact that it's probably hair. They decided, I guess, that hair in this case was supposed to be sort of a greenish brown. Very strange. And yet, that color doesn't make any other appearance, it seems, on the figure's body. He does have, though, at least one thing on the back of the figure's body, and that is whip marks. Whoosh, 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 times 3. All along the back of his body. He doesn't have any other bruising other than those two places. Well, this place right here, and then whatever this is supposed to be on the front. It would have been nice if they could have actually put a little bit of bruising there somewhere else on the rest of the figure's body. He doesn't even have it really on his face, other than, again, like the little sacrificial symbol. Other than that, it's again, a really good-looking head sculpt and an equally nice-looking body for a ripped Harrison Ford. That's the route you wanted to go. The body-wise, lower half at least, seems to be the same legs as what we got before. The one thing, though, that's different between the two figures is the fact that this one does have the ripped leg, the ripped knee, whereas this one has just the regular leg. So again, it might be just still the same case that they've used this leg and this leg as the same mold, and then they just would have retooled new molding to at least sculpt this part of his lower leg. For the figure's articulation, going back to the figure's head sculpt here, the head is on, once again, a ball joint that allows the head to rotate all the way around. It moves up, it moves down, and it rocks back and forth as well. The base of the neck, also, as you can see, a lot easier on this shirtless Indy, does have also a ball joint, so it does also have the means to move up and down, back and forth. Technically, you could, I guess, rotate the neck all the way around. I don't know why you would want to. And the Adam's apple would be on the back of the figure's neck. That would make no sense whatsoever. The figure has an upper torso ball joint. Yes, he does. The figure also has a lower abdomen joint, sure. And the figure also has something I wasn't able to see before in the other early Indiana Jones, is that this one does have a shoulder crunch. Just to look actually at the shoulder on this one, this figure doesn't seem to have it. So it might be just something that they incorporated for a shirtless Indiana Jones, some just additional sockage. No, not suckage, sockage. He does have a hinge joint there on the tops of his shoulder that allows also the arm to rotate all the way around. The figure has a single hinge joint in the elbow that allows the forearm to rotate back and forth, and yes, if you could believe it, the hands rotate all the way around, hinging back and forth. Once again, let's just fix the rope here. The legs do split out. They seem to be relying on those large ball joints in the inside cavity of the thighs, and 3/4 of the way up the thigh, there's a swivel cut, so you can rotate the leg all the way around. Single hinge greets you at the door at the lower leg. That allows at least the lower leg to also rotate back and forth. And like the Indies we already had a look at, he has an ankle rocker back and forth this way and an ankle rocker back and forth this way. I think this also marks the last time we will be doing head swaps, as I can't imagine we will be doing. I guess maybe we'll be also trying to do that also with the older Indiana Jones from the Dial of Destiny, but we certainly won't be doing that when we look at the other two figures, Short Round and, of course, Helena Shaw. Yes, we have to be looking at Helena Shaw. Helena Shaw will at least be able to give us some progress when it comes to progressing our build of the skeleton skull. Again, I don't know why these Indiana Jones figures don't have... By the way, I don't know if I had actually mentioned, but there's holes in the bottoms of their feet. So yeah, if you did want to use yourself a display stand for these figures. Lately, it just seems like the Indiana Jones, for me at least, have a harder time to stand. Standing, by the way, here's all the 3 Indiana Jones figures, not necessarily in chronological order, but at least it gives you an idea of how they have changed some of them. I mean, really, in all the cases, all the Indiana Jones have had something different about them. The legs have remained somewhat the same, except for the one in the middle here does have the ripped in the knee. But really, all the rest of the Indiana Jones have tweaked something to it. So it's not simply just a case of Malibu Stacy getting a hat this time. That Malibu Stacy reference, by the way, was taken from The Simpsons, in which the company that was producing Malibu Stacy literally just re-released the same doll, and I think they gave her a sun hat this time. That many collectors now, when they get figures that are simply just repaints or they just include an accessory that weren't there before, they usually say, oh, it's Malibu Stacy now with a hat. Not the case this time around, my friends, when it comes to the Wave 2 Indiana Jones figures. All of the Indies have been unique from one another. It's not just the case that Indiana Jones this time around comes with the goblet of Kalira. No, this time around we actually get ourselves a shirtless Indiana Jones that has, of course, now whip marks on the back of his body and comes without a hat. How about that? Speaking of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, one can't help but notice, at least I noticed at least, the sacrificing scene in that movie. Not with Indiana Jones, but the man that actually gets his heart yanked out of his body and then plunges down into the pit down below. If you ever carefully listen to that music, the same similar music, it's not exactly the same, but it's very close, in fact, to the music that was then also used for Star Wars The Phantom Menace when Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn were lastly battling Darth Maul. The Duel of Fates, I believe it's called, that particular score. If you listen to the two, John Williams did technically score both, and obviously George Lucas was responsible for both the Indiana Jones franchise, the trilogy, and what we got with Star Wars. So it would make some sense that he would then look at the stuff that they were doing for Temple of Doom and say, hey, you know, that sacrificing scene composed theme, man, I have another purpose for that as well. Yeah, we could have it used for 3 Jedis that are battling, or technically 2 Jedis and a Sith. Either way, though, what do you guys think of Hypnotized Indiana Jones? I really like the look of this one. Unfortunately, though, we have to take a bit of a step away from what I'm loving so far to kind of what I'm not liking as much. Of course, in order to progress and build the skull any further than what we have right now, I had to be the bearer of bad news, but we will be having to look at the Dial of Destiny, Helena Shaw. Yeah, her review will be coming up shortly, so for those that certainly would like to see the review of Helena, definitely stay tuned to this channel. Of course, as always, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly do want to stick around for more Indiana Jones reviews as we continue our build of the Temple of Doom skull, definitely make sure you're coming back to this channel with peepers always peeled. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.